Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita's flagship, Musashi, led the center force into the Sibuyan Sea. A ship so vast her bridge stood higher than a destroyer's mast. She was Japan's pride, the most heavily armed battleship ever sent to war, and the shield of an operation meant to decide the Philippines. Kurita's orders were clear: break through to Leyte and destroy the American invasion fleet before it could land in force. But as his fleet advanced through the narrow sea lanes, lookouts began calling out thin white trails high above the horizon. First one, then several more. The sky was clear. The fleet had no air cover. Kurita watched in silence as the contrails grew thicker, stretching toward him. The largest warship ever built was about to face a kind of enemy no battleship had ever fought alone. After the Battle of the Philippine Sea, Japan's naval air power was shattered, yet its leaders believed another sea battle could delay invasion and give their fleet one final chance to strike. When it became clear the Americans' next target was the Philippines, Japan activated Sho-Go, a complex plan to lure Admiral William F. Halsey's carriers away, with Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa's northern force acting as bait, while other units would attack the exposed invasion fleet. Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force would spearhead the main blow, passing through the San Bernardino Strait to strike from the north. This powerful formation included the super battleships Yamato and Musashi, 5 battleships in all, 10 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 13 destroyers. On October 18th, Admiral Somu Toyoda gave the order. Kurita sailed from Singapore, refueled at Brunei, and headed north through the Palawan Passage. By then, however, American raids on Formosa and Luzon airfields had reduced Japan's available aircraft to fewer than 100, and a communications failure left Kurita unaware that no air cover would come. Now his armada had no choice but to cross the Sibuyan Sea, relying only on the anti-aircraft guns of his ships. Before they even arrived, on the 23rd, American submarines Darter and Dace staged an ambush. Kurita's flagship, Otago, and the cruiser Maya fell to the bottom of the ocean, forcing the beleaguered heavy cruiser Takao to limp back to Brunei, while Kurita, pulled from the water following the attack, transferred his flag to Yamato and pressed on toward the Sibuyan Sea. Off the eastern Philippines, Admiral Halsey waited for the Japanese fleet. On the 23rd, after a submarine sighting, he ordered his 3 carrier groups to refuel and move closer to the coast, reaching position by nightfall. At daybreak on the 24th, American search planes sighted Vice Admiral Kurita's force, consisting of 5 battleships, 9 cruisers, and 13 destroyers, moving through the Sibuyan Sea toward Leyte. Admiral Halsey immediately ordered his carriers to launch, sending wave after wave of bombers toward the target. As the first strike groups formed up, radar operators aboard his ships detected several large Japanese air formations approaching from the northwest. These flyers were land-based aircraft from Luzon and carrier planes from Vice Admiral Ozawa's northern force, originally meant to defend Kurita's advance. Instead, the protectors fired their ammunition against Halsey's task force. For hours, the US fighters met them head-on and broke their attack in a series of fierce dogfights that scattered the enemy across the sky. Among those pilots in the defense was Commander David McCampbell, who shot down 9 planes in a single sortie and was later awarded the Medal of Honor. Most attackers were destroyed, but one bomber struck the light carrier Princeton with a 550-pound bomb. Fire spread, triggering an explosion that took the lives of more than 320 sailors before the ship sank that afternoon. While Sherman's carriers fought for survival, Rear Admirals Gerald Bogan and Ralph Davison, commanding the other two carrier groups, finally launched their strikes toward the Sibuyan Sea, where Kurita's fleet steamed directly into their path. From mid-morning until early afternoon of October 24th, American carrier planes hammered Admiral Kurita's forces time and time again as they crossed the Sibuyan Sea on the western side of the Philippines, each wave of attacks more punishing than the last. Ironically, Rear Admiral Gerald Bogan's group, best positioned to strike Kurita, was also the weakest, with one large and two light carriers. Vice Admiral John McCain's stronger group was still en route to Leyte for resupply. Though Admiral Halsey recalled McCain, the delay meant nearly 40% of Third Fleet's air strength would miss the battle entirely. The aircraft began their runs at 10:26 a.m. with 45 fighters, dive bombers and torpedo planes from the carriers Intrepid and Cabot made up the initial wave, where clear skies and fair weather greeted the aviators as they flew westward. American pilots were stunned by the sheer intensity of the Japanese anti-aircraft barrage, unaware that Kurita had deliberately strengthened each ship's defenses to compensate for the lack of air cover. As a result, more than 100 guns thundered from Kurita's battleships and cruisers, while destroyers added dozens more. Yet, surprised and relieved at the absence of enemy fighters, the American fighters descended first, strafing the Japanese vessels to force gunners into cover. The torpedo planes and dive bombers followed, hoping to strike a disorganized defense. Most aircraft concentrated on the giant battleship Musashi, whose reinforced steel plates absorbed enormous punishment. The strikes also hit the battleships Nagato and Yamato, though the cruiser Miyoko sustained the heaviest damage and had to turn back toward Brunei via Coron Bay. As wave after wave continued the assault, inflicting further damage to Musashi and other ships in Kurita's formation, the desperate Japanese admiral sent an urgent message to Admiral Ozawa, asking whether or not they had lured the Americans away from the San Bernardino Strait, and also requested fighter support from Manila. However, those aircraft were busy attacking Sherman's carriers to the east, leaving Kurita to hope that the sacrificial fleet had done its job. By early afternoon, Musashi was struggling to make headway off the Sibuyan Sea, and the pilots began to concentrate their efforts against the wounded battleship, sending countless bombs and torpedoes onto her sturdy hull and causing her to develop a noticeable list. Recalling the intensity of the assault, according to Commander Dan Smith, "When we winged over for our dive, we entered a cloud bank and the Jap guns went silent because they couldn't see us. When we emerged from the clouds, they opened up again like the hammers of hell. The last time I saw Musashi, she was stopped dead in the water and her entire forecastle was awash." A second wave from Intrepid, Essex and Lexington pressed the attack. Hell divers from Essex's VB-15 squadron and Hellcats from VF-15 scored another 10 hits on the listing battleship. As Musashi withdrew, struggling to stay afloat, a third wave arrived from the carriers Enterprise and Franklin. These aircraft struck her with an additional 11 bombs and 8 torpedoes, pushing the massive ship past the point of survival. As the attacks continued, aircraft from Sherman's task group joined the assault, and now what little remained of the Japanese air threat was all gone. One bomb struck Musashi's tower that housed the command bridges, while torpedoes continued to slam against her hull, and other aircraft launched continuous attacks on Kurita's cruisers and destroyers. The Japanese commander, steaming without air cover to shield him, could do nothing but hope his anti-aircraft guns could stop the opposition before they inflicted catastrophic damage. After absorbing at least 17 bomb hits and 19 torpedo hits throughout the day, Musashi finally capsized and sank at approximately 7:35 p.m. that evening, taking 1,100 men with her. By the time the assault concluded, Halsey's carrier aircraft had flown 259 sorties against Kurita's fleet, while Japanese guns had shot down only 18 American planes. Even Admiral Ugaki noted grimly in his diary, "The small number of enemy planes shot down is regrettable." Against this, American pilots had inflicted devastating punishment on the Japanese force, with the battleships Yamato, Haruna and Nagato all sustaining damage, the cruiser Miyoko forced back to Brunei for repairs, and Musashi, one of the most powerful battleships ever built, now at the bottom of the ocean. October 24th marked the opening stage of Leyte Gulf. Believing reports that Kurita's force had been destroyed, Halsey turned his fleet north after scouts sighted a Japanese carrier group under Ozawa, the decisive engagement he had long sought. He took every available ship and left the San Bernardino Strait, the approach to the invasion beaches, unguarded. The message never reached Admiral Thomas Kincaid, whose forces still covered the landings at Leyte. Kurita, battered but under orders to continue, turned his damaged ships back toward the strait. With Halsey gone, no one blocked his way, and by dawn on October 25th, his battleships were heading for the invasion fleet. Farther south, Japan's southern attack was destroyed at the Surigao Strait. That morning, Kurita's ships clashed with the small escort group Taffy 3. Outgunned but relentless, the Americans fought so fiercely that Kurita believed he faced a major fleet. After heavy losses, he withdrew as Halsey crushed Ozawa's decoy carriers. The battle, which ended on October 26th, shattered Japan's naval power beyond recovery. 4 carriers, 3 battleships, 10 cruisers, and 11 destroyers were lost, along with more than 10,000 sailors. American losses were lighter, though still costly. From there, the path to the Japanese home islands lay open at last.